Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott.
Josh, my friend, it would not be a day on this planet Earth if we did not have some sort of cyberpunk thing to talk about. So, but this is actually pretty good. This isn't, one of the directors quitting. This isn't some sort of crazy negative thing. It's actually a little bit more positive. So, this comes from a user called Prickly Assassin who data mined the Epic Game Store, because apparently the Epic Game Store preps a whole bunch of, they prep their servers ahead of time, whether it be weeks or months, for upcoming games DLC, and they've just managed to uncover all the DLC that's coming for Cyberpunk. They've managed to verify it a couple of times online, so it seems like this is the legit thing to start dissecting. Now, it's worth pointing out that there was a list of DLC back in February for the game. There was 18 pieces of DLC. That's now been refined down to 10, and 3 of them will be paid DLC. But right now, we don't know which ones are actually going to be paid. I've separated stuff out a little bit, because some of these just feel like they have to be free DLC. Other things sound like they could be story expansions or whatever, but we'll get through it. One of them is unnamed, so that can be something that we can guess going forward. But in terms of the stuff that feels like it'll definitely be free, there's a RipaDucks expansion, there's a Body Shops expansion, there's a Fashion Forward expansion, which maybe will let you preview your clothing before buying it, and there's a Night City expansion, which is quite interesting in regards to maybe that'll be like a borough, or I don't know if they're going to do more world geometry, like maybe they didn't get everything finished beforehand. So I'll quickly rattle through the stuff that I think might be the contenders for being paid, and we'll go back to that stuff that I just said. So the rest of it is the Gangs of Night City pack, the Body of Chrome pack, the Rides of the Dark Future pack, the Relic pack, and Neck Deep, which I'm pretty sure Neck Deep is a band. But
it is a band, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they've signed a deal. There's a lot of different bands on there. But so let's go back to the stuff that I said at the beginning. You got the RipaDucks, the Body Shops, Fashion Forward, and the Night City expansion. How do you think that'll play out?
Some of that stuff sounds like it might have originally been intended for the main game and then had to get shifted because of release dates or whatever. That sounds good to flesh out, like all of the RipaDucks stuff was fascinating, and I felt like you didn't get to really delve into it as much as you should. It's a huge part of the early game when you go to see, I think he's called Victor. Is he Victor?
Victor.
Definitely
the best
Victor?
name ever.
So good. And then he kind of just drops out the story and you meet some other RipaDucks along the way. But for me, those upgrades in that skill tree, it was so interesting. Some of the late end game kind of unlocks that you could get, like the double jump, a bunch of cool mantis blades and stuff like that. I found those really interesting to use. It's just that, I was never really pushed in that direction. So I hope that kind of fleshes that world out a little bit more. Because some of the best missions, even in Cyberpunk for me, centered around the RipaDucks and the kind of black market RipaDucks who were kind of feasting on people's organs or implanting, really bad cybernetics into people that were just, not trustworthy and would go off the deep end and stuff. So, I think that one in particular stands out to me as being an obvious area where you'd kind of expand on what's already there.
Well, it's one thing that I think a lot of us assumed going in was that every time you bought something from a RipaDuck, you would get that animation of them, the thing that you do get when you get the grip upgrade at the beginning, so you can use that machine pistol thing, and that every time you got, maybe, if I'm going to get new eyes or I'm going to get new legs or whatever, there should be an animation for that where you get to see the pieces being put on, and I always assumed that was going to be there, because that sort of in-depth animation is only there at the very beginning, and then I don't think you get anything else when you buy it from the RipaDuck that comes with an animation. It's just slotted in and out on the inventory. In regards to the Night City expansion, do you think that's more detail? Do you think that's actually more world geometry?
I would love that. I would love if they just made what's there kind of more dense and added more verticality to it. Because I love Night City as a place, Scott. I really did genuinely, bugs aside, enjoyed my time exploring that place. But it's nowhere near as interactive as what a lot of people expected it to be. And it's nowhere near as vertical as a lot of what people expected it to be. There are a few skyscrapers you can kind of get into. But, you look at that city, you look at how impossibly tall it is. You look at some of the flying vehicles, like the flying ambulance that comes and picks people up. I think it's called the trauma. The trauma unit. And that kind of raised so many possibilities that obviously weren't there in the main game because there was so many things that already went wrong just at a base level. So with the Night City expansion, I would love to see some of those ideas finally get implemented and more interactivity, just kind of in the world in general, to make it to make it feel like it's more lived in and not just kind of like a bunch of cardboard boxes stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like that whole thing of where they have so many quality of life things that need to be touched up. I mean, like I said, mentioned like back in February there was even more DLCs listed, but assumedly as they've managed to sort of sketch out exactly how 2021 is going to look, maybe they've narrowed down like, okay, these are the key areas that we need to improve on. Mentioning the fashion stuff is interesting because it was a totally like a notable talking point that when you went to the various different places to buy clothing, you couldn't even preview it. You couldn't even bring up a model of your character to see what you were getting. So if that's some part of that, it's worth putting in.
And other stuff involving the customization as well, like the idea of not being able to preview clothes was just crazy. I remember the first time I spent like 1,000 credits or whatever I had on like this new dress for my character, and then I put it on. I was like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Why have I just wasted all this money on this? Like that's obviously a huge part of it, but also just the ability to kind of change basic things that I felt like was a major oversight. You know, when you lock in your character at the beginning, when you do the character customization, you can't change things like hair or piercings or tattoos or anything like that, and that just kind of seems like something that should have been in the game, considering how, you know, fluid this area
like
of
a massive
customization
part
is
of
supposed
like
to be in context, you know?
Yeah, a whole massive part of cyberpunk fiction is transhumanism, is the ability to like swap things out. Body is meat, mind is software, super heart, whatever. You should be able to mix and match whatever you like. So it's like that should be a major component, like whether it comes through in like the direct fashion stuff, the accessory side of it, or just fancying a new set of limbs out for the weekend. Like you should be able to do that stuff.
Yeah, and kind of like going back to blending this and the Night City thing, I want to see like the apartments kind of included. That was another thing I thought was going to be in the game at the start. I wonder whether they implement that with either the Night City expansion or the fashion thing, because it kind of links. Yeah.
So the next stuff is the things that are sort of listed that assumedly will be, 3 of these will be paid, at least based on the current leak anyway. Although my gut feeling is that the CDPR could not get away with charging any money for anything right now, but I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, so we've got the Gangs of Night City. The thing is as well, as the leaker pointed out, Prickly Assassin pointed out, 2 of these DLC packs are named after videos that were on the Cyberpunk channel. So we've got the Gangs of Night City, Body of Chrome, Rides of the Dark Future, The Relic and Neck Deep. Gangs of Night City and Rides of the Dark Future are the 2 videos that were on their YouTube channel, where they showed off the different Gangs of Night City, all the different research that they've done into making these different vehicles of the future. And that wasn't really that wasn't fleshed out at all in the base game, especially in regards to the gangs. So I wonder if this is a story thing, like the Gangs of New York, Gangs of Night City. If that'll be some sort of story thing where you trigger a set of missions and you go and actually meet all the different people, the Voodoo Boys or whoever. I mean, I guess at this stage, like, do you care about that stuff? Like, just sort of like fleshing out the world in regards to like these different factions, because it fundamentally does not impact the main story. So there's only so much you can kind of do with the side stuff at this point.
That's true. It depends, exactly how extensive it is. Because for me, a lot of these DLCs I'm using as kind of like opportunities to fill in the blanks of things that I thought should have been there in the first place. And when it comes to like the gangs that occupy Night City, I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. Like in the first big mission where you're trying to pull off the heist, you're battling against a bunch of different factions. You don't want to piss some people off. You don't want to align with others because it might compromise your relationship with other people. But that's like the only time that kind of faction-based stuff ever gets brought up, which sucks because the gangs themselves are cool and they have such a stranglehold on different parts of Night City that I always felt like I should have been brushing up against them more often, that the decisions I was making should have impacted how they viewed me, like Fallout New Vegas style, So if they managed to implement a system like that in this DLC, again, I think it'll just go a long way in making Night City feel lived in, and also making it feel like your actions have consequences, because ultimately if you're running around working for the police and battling against a certain gang, surely your reputation, or I guess notoriety within that faction, is going to increase. Like it should have a knock-on effect, and hopefully whether this is paid DLC or whether it's not, hopefully that kind of implements that system, which is kind of there a little bit in the final game, but nowhere near as extensive as was teased.
No, that's the thing. It's always going to be, which is the only the No Man's Sky comparison that I would make, is that they do have a version of the game that people have based on the marketing, which is totally valid. The version that was sold to them as almost Cyberpunk GTA, and it's going to be, how close to that version are they going to have to try to get, versus how much was just a marketing spin. Like, what was the version version they were always going to make and what was the version that the marketing took and ran with. Is it a No Man's Sky situation or is it a Halo 5 situation? Like, what version do we settle on? But yeah, I mean, I think all this stuff sounds like super interesting. The idea of doing an entire DLC pack or expansion around the Relic is kind of cool because you sort of just fly through that stuff. If I'm remembering right, the Relic is the whole, the super piece of super secret tech that you're trying to heist at the very beginning of the game that then forms like a major component throughout the rest of the story, I think.
Right. I cannot remember that, Scott.
We've both been through this game, but it was a long time ago. But yeah, I think if they flesh that side of it out, it'll only impact the different endings. I definitely know that my ending had something to do with the Relic, so if they flesh that stuff out, it could be cool. Final predictions on what the hell Neck Deep is.
It's the band Fortnite style. You know when Fortnite got Marshmello to play a live gig?
No.
Well, we're going to get the band Neck Deep to either come in and play on the radio or come in and play a virtual gig. And that's my prediction for what that is. It'll be free. It'll get people back in. The band will promote it. This is, I think, just a wish list of what I want it to be, rather than what it's going to be.
Hey, if that leads to Tame Impala swinging in, then I'll take it, mate. But it depends what they can bring together. Speaking of fake digital gigs, though, it totally was a thing that was teased. That is it Grimes or Twigs?
Yeah.
Grimes, I think, was going to be in the game. Yeah, and she is in the game in like a very, very small capacity. But way before launch, they were talking about doing this whole in-game virtual gig thing, where her character takes herself apart and reconstitutes herself across the gig. That's not in there. So, you never know.
The Grimes character, the storyline with her, she's not called Grimes in the thing. It's
Lizzie Wizzy,
she's playing,
I think she's called?
Yeah, Lizzie Wizzy. Like, her storyline just ends when you finish her subplot. Like, it ends on, like, a tease that something big is going to happen. I think she might even tease that gig, and then it just never happens, and you never get to see it. So, yeah, please include that.
If it somehow is Neck Deep, then we're calling this right now. It almost definitely won't be, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. So yeah, let us know what you think down in the comments below of all the leaked DLC. What do you think of the idea of CDPR charging money for this stuff at this point? And what do you think of the various bits and pieces that are listed here? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.